The grand estate of the Montclair family gleamed under the morning sun. Its marble columns and sprawling lawns reflected not just wealth but the cold precision of privilege. Yet, for all its beauty, inside the mansion, chaos reigned. The Montclair triplets, Sebastian, Isabella, and Julian, were notorious. No nanny, governess, or caregiver had lasted a single day without either quitting in frustration or fleeing in despair. "Why do you keep hiring them if they all fail?" asked the Montclair patriarch, Richard Montclair, a man whose presence alone commanded attention and fear. His voice, deep and clipped, carried the weight of entitlement. The wealthy elite often assumed money could buy obedience, discipline, and charm, but with his children, even that failed. "Perhaps you just need someone tougher," Richard replied, his eyes scanning the opulent dining room where his triplets were already plotting mayhem. Sebastian, the eldest, had dark, mischievous eyes and a cunning grin that suggested he knew exactly how to push boundaries. Isabella, with her striking auburn hair and piercing green eyes, thrived on drama, making every minor incident feel like a catastrophe. Julian, the youngest, had a quiet ferocity, the kind that could simmer before exploding at the perfect moment. Every nanny left because the children were not just spoiled, they were relentless. One young woman, exhausted and in tears, had described them as little tyrants. Another had fainted in shock when Sebastian had poured a pitcher of juice over her head, an act meant to test her limits. And then came Amara Johnson. Amara was not like the others. She was a black woman in her late 20s, strong, resilient, and carrying herself with quiet confidence that was immediately apparent. Her skin was a rich, warm mahogany, her hair coiled tightly but perfectly maintained, and her eyes sparkled with intelligence and empathy. Unlike the other nannies who approached the Montclair mansion trembling, Amara walked through the gates as if she owned them. The Montclair family barely noticed the difference at first. Richard, blinded by wealth and habit, assumed she would last a few hours, like the rest. But Amara had something no one else did: patience, strategy, and a refusal to be intimidated by privilege. From the first day, she noticed the subtle ways the triplets manipulated and tested authority. Sebastian would throw subtle taunts, trying to make her lose composure. Isabella would fabricate stories of injustice, pitting Amara against the house staff. Julian, quieter but sharper, would sabotage small tasks to see her reaction. But Amara didn't react like the others. She moved calmly, speaking with firm kindness, letting consequences follow naturally, and always maintaining her dignity. She knew that humiliation, if wielded correctly, could teach lessons stronger than punishment. The first major test came when the triplets decided to orchestrate a food war. Sebastian poured chocolate syrup across the kitchen counter, Isabella tipped over a bowl of fruit salad, Julian strategically placed slippery oil on the floor. They waited for Amara to lose control. She didn't. Instead, she calmly instructed them to clean the mess, guiding them with patience but authority. Her voice was firm, yet not harsh. She explained the consequences of their actions: the mess had to be rectified, and if they chose to disrupt the household again, certain privileges would be removed. The triplets, unused to being held accountable by someone they could not intimidate, were stunned. For the first time, they hesitated. Word began to spread among the Montclair staff: "This woman, she's different." Yet the true challenge came during the Montclair annual gala, an event where the family's wealth and influence were displayed in glittering abundance. Nannies often broke down during the chaos, but Amara thrived under pressure. She kept the triplets in check, navigating the sea of guests, the intricate social rules, and the constant attempts by the children to embarrass her. It was in the ballroom, under the chandeliers that sparkled like captured stars, that the first real confrontation occurred. Sebastian, spotting an opportunity, whispered to his siblings, "Watch this, she'll crack." Moments later, Isabella began to spill punch, nudging Julian into knocking over a decorative vase. Gasps filled the room as glasses shattered and liquid stained the floor. Guests looked horrified. And then Amara acted. With a calmness that drew every eye, she moved through the chaos. She prevented further destruction, cleaned up the mess, and, with the triplets in tow, explained to them the embarrassment they had caused. "Mistakes happen," she said, "but actions have consequences. We correct them, and we learn. That is how we grow." The crowd watched, stunned. The triplets' usual antics had been neutralized not by punishment, but by a combination of dignity, authority, and intelligence. Sebastian's jaw tightened. Isabella's eyes narrowed. Julian's expression, for once, revealed uncertainty. The Montclair family, and indeed the gathered guests, were witnessing something they had never seen, the children respecting, even fearing, someone outside of their wealth and social class. But just as Amara began to feel a sense of accomplishment, a subtle, almost imperceptible tension rippled through the air. She didn't notice Sebastian slipping behind her, his small hand reaching for the cake centerpiece. And that's when disaster struck. A loud crash echoed through the ballroom. Guests screamed. Amara spun, but not fast enough to prevent the cake from toppling onto her dress. Chocolate, cream, and fruit smeared across her uniform. Gasps filled the room. Sebastian grinned, triumphant. Isabella doubled over in laughter. Julian smirked, but Amara, drenched and humiliated in front of the Montclair elite, did something no one expected. She laughed too, softly, almost imperceptibly, but with a power that silenced the room. The triplets froze. The Montclairs were speechless. Amara straightened, wiped the mess from her dress with grace, and addressed the children with a look that could freeze fire. "You think this embarrassed me?" she asked calmly, her voice echoing over the stunned silence. "No. It only proves what I already know: I can handle you. And if I can handle you, I can handle anything." The room fell into a hush. No nanny had ever dared respond with such authority, let alone humor, after being humiliated. Sebastian's eyes narrowed. "This isn't over," he muttered under his breath. Amara smiled, understanding the unspoken challenge. She knew that earning respect from the Montclair triplets was only the first battle. The war was just beginning, and she was ready. That night, after the gala, Amara received a mysterious message slipped under her door. "We know who you really are. And this game is far from over. Be careful, or the Montclair triplets will break even the strongest of wills." She picked up the note, her heart steady, her mind calculating, knowing that the greatest test was yet to come. Amara Johnson didn't sleep that night. The note under her door had been deliberate, and she sensed that the Montclair triplets' latest stunt at the gala was only the beginning. The mansion, which had always seemed like a playground for mischief, now felt like a chessboard, and she was determined to be the player, not the pawn. By morning, the triplets were already plotting. Sebastian, still buzzing from his triumph at the gala, whispered to Isabella and Julian in the kitchen. "She laughed at the cake," he said. "She didn't even cry. We have to step it up." Isabella smirked, running her fingers through her auburn hair. "Oh, we'll see who cracks first. I have ideas that will make her wish she never stepped foot in this house." Julian, quiet as always, simply nodded. His eyes, dark and calculating, followed Amara as she entered the kitchen, effortlessly carrying breakfast trays with the ease of someone used to strategy and endurance. Amara had already anticipated their morning attack. Before the triplets could unleash any chaos, she placed a large fruit basket at the center of the table, gently nudging each child to sit down. "Breakfast is ready. Let's eat together," she said warmly, yet her tone carried unmistakable authority. Sebastian tried to sneak a piece of chocolate under the table to Julian's hand. Amara caught the movement in a flash. "Sebastian," she said calmly, "if you want chocolate, ask politely. Sneaking only leads to consequences." The children froze. No one had ever spoken to Sebastian in that tone, a tone that did not yell, scream, or punish harshly, but cut straight to the truth. Over the next several days, Amara began implementing her strategy. She studied the triplets' patterns, their favorite manipulations, and their hidden weaknesses. She realized that their cruelty and chaos were often an outlet for attention. They craved acknowledgement, both positive and negative. So she turned the tables, rewarding cooperation while calmly redirecting destructive behavior. If Sebastian tried to disrupt a chore, she created an engaging challenge that transformed his energy into something productive. Isabella, the drama queen, was given leadership roles for minor household projects, allowing her creativity to flourish rather than explode. Julian, whose quiet cunning often caused the most chaos, was given tasks that required strategic thinking, turning his mischief into mentorship for his siblings. The shift was subtle but profound. Within a week, the Montclair staff began noticing a difference. The mansion, once a battlefield, was starting to resemble a place of controlled harmony. But the triplets were not defeated yet. They sensed the subtle changes, but their pride and ego would not allow them to submit gracefully. Sebastian staged a small rebellion during a weekend excursion. He led his siblings to sneak out to the estate's private gardens, attempting to challenge Amara with their usual blend of tricks. Amara, however, anticipated this. Waiting quietly near the fountain, she watched as the children arrived, thinking they had outsmarted her. "Good morning," she said calmly, folding her arms. "I see you've come to challenge me." Sebastian froze. "How did you know?" he asked, a mixture of awe and frustration in his voice. Amara smiled. "I know you. I know your patterns, your habits, and your love for mischief. Now, let's turn this energy into something productive." What followed was a day that would leave a mark on the triplets. Amara guided them through problem-solving exercises disguised as games. Sebastian had to plan a miniature treasure hunt, Isabella organized a team challenge, and Julian navigated a logic puzzle that required collaboration. By evening, the triplets were exhausted, but for the first time, they were proud of themselves, not just pleased with rebellion. Even more surprising to the children, their father noticed. Richard Montclair, a man who valued control above all, watched from the veranda as Amara handled the triplets with intelligence and calm authority. He was silent, uncertain, yet impressed. For the first time, he questioned whether wealth alone could truly command obedience. Amara's confidence grew. She realized that transforming the triplets was not just about controlling their mischief, it was about teaching them responsibility, empathy, and the understanding that actions had consequences beyond immediate gratification. However, victory always attracts challenges. One evening, while reviewing the household schedule, Amara noticed subtle changes in the staff behavior. Some of the Montclair staff were acting distant, whispering behind her back. And then she found the first clue, a small note tucked under her planning binder, unsigned but ominous. "You may be winning, but the Montclair legacy has secrets you cannot imagine. The triplets are not the only danger here." Her heart raced, but she did not panic. Amara knew that true strength wasn't about reacting, it was about anticipating. She began quietly observing, watching not just the triplets, but everyone in the mansion. Then came the second test, one that would truly measure her resolve. A high-profile socialite, invited by Richard Montclair, decided to bring her own children and expose the triplets' behavior to the city's elite. The Montclair children saw this as the perfect opportunity to humiliate Amara in front of outsiders, proving that no nanny could control them. At the gala, the triplets executed a series of elaborate pranks, spilling punch, tripping servers, and even pretending to sabotage the dessert table. The guests gasped, laughter and gasps mixing as chaos seemed inevitable. Amara stepped forward, calm and poised. With each stunt, she redirected the children with grace and authority, even turning some mishaps into clever demonstrations of teamwork that amazed the audience. Sebastian's hands trembled with frustration as he realized that nothing he did could shake her composure. Isabella's dramatic flair softened as she saw her creativity channeled effectively. Julian's quiet cunning turned into problem-solving genius, impressing even the cynical socialites. By the end of the evening, the Montclair guests were in awe. Amara had not only prevented humiliation, but she had transformed potential chaos into a spectacle of grace and skill. Yet the night ended with a whisper of threat. As Amara prepared to leave, she found another note slipped into her coat pocket, almost invisible. You may control the children now, but the mansion holds more than mischief. Some secrets are deadly, and you are not ready. Amara read the note carefully, her mind sharp and alert. The Montclair triplets had been her first challenge, but clearly, they were only the beginning. Something bigger, hidden deep within the walls of the estate, was waiting. As she walked back to her quarters, Amara sensed a shadow following her through the corridors. When she turned, no one was there, yet a chill ran down her spine. The message was clear, the real test was about to begin. The mansion was quiet, but Amara could feel the tension in the air. Every creak of the floorboards and whisper of the wind seemed magnified. She had handled the triplets, earned Richard Montclair's cautious respect, and impressed the social elite. Yet something about the mansion felt off. The note she had discovered earlier lingered in her mind: some secrets are deadly, and you are not ready. It was not a threat she could ignore. That night, she decided to explore the corridors after everyone had gone to bed. Using the staff's knowledge of the mansion's hidden nooks, Amara discovered a small, dust-covered library tucked behind a sliding panel in the study. Inside were folders, old photographs, and journals, the kind of records a family would hide from public eyes. As she sifted through the papers, her eyes widened. The Montclairs were not just wealthy, they were deeply entangled in a history of corporate manipulation, secret alliances, and scandals that had been quietly buried. More troubling, some of the documents referenced the children themselves, specifically, experiments and behavioral conditioning that explained the triplets' cruelty. Amara's jaw tightened. The challenge wasn't just managing mischievous children anymore, she was now facing a legacy of manipulation designed to keep the triplets dominant, entitled, and emotionally detached. The stakes were no longer about obedience, they were about survival and morality. The next morning, the triplets sensed her change in demeanor. Sebastian tried his usual antics, tossing a marble across the hallway, hoping it would startle her. Amara, however, simply bent down, picked up the marble, and placed it on the mantel. A small action can have a big impact, she said calmly, letting the words linger in the air. The triplets exchanged uneasy glances. By midday, Amara had crafted a new strategy. She realized that the only way to truly reach the triplets was to challenge them in ways their father never had, emotionally, morally, and intellectually. She began a series of lessons disguised as games, each targeting a specific flaw: arrogance, selfishness, and lack of empathy. The first challenge was subtle, a scavenger hunt designed to teach teamwork. Sebastian wanted to dominate, Isabella wanted attention, and Julian wanted to manipulate the rules. Amara guided them patiently, using their own competitive natures to push them toward collaboration. By the end of the exercise, the triplets had achieved what neither wealth nor privilege could have forced: they felt pride in working together. But the mansion had other tests waiting. During dinner, a masked guest, a friend of the Montclair's extended circle, arrived unannounced. Their presence was intimidating, and their questions probed the family in ways that unsettled everyone. The triplets, sensing an opportunity for mischief, attempted a series of pranks to disrupt the evening. Amara anticipated their moves and turned the chaos into an impromptu challenge for the guests. With quick thinking, she framed the children's actions as playful demonstrations of creativity and intelligence. The socialite guests were impressed, some even laughing nervously at the clever redirection. Sebastian's jaw dropped, Isabella's dramatic gestures froze, and Julian, ever calculating, realized that Amara had anticipated every move. That night, as the children slept, Amara pored over the hidden library documents again. A particular folder caught her eye. It contained letters from a mysterious figure warning the Montclairs about a potential scandal tied to their company, one that could ruin them financially and socially. The letters suggested that the triplets were being groomed not only to inherit wealth but also to protect the family's secrets at all costs. Amara's heart pounded. She understood the gravity of the situation. The children were not just mischievous, they were pieces in a much larger game of power and survival. Over the next several days, Amara's approach shifted. She began teaching the triplets about consequences, not through punishment, but through understanding. She explained the ripple effect of their actions, the invisible networks of people affected by decisions made in privilege, and the moral responsibility that came with influence. Sebastian struggled the most. His usual bravado faltered as he realized that no act of rebellion could escape unseen consequences. Isabella, who thrived on drama, found satisfaction in creative problem-solving rather than attention-seeking chaos. Julian, the quiet strategist, began to respect Amara's foresight, learning to channel his intellect for positive outcomes rather than selfish gain. Just as Amara began to see progress, an alarming event shook the mansion. One of the hidden documents revealed a recent threat. Someone had discovered part of the Montclair secrets and was planning exposure. The triplets, unaware of the depth of danger, continued their playful games, oblivious to the storm gathering beyond the mansion walls. Amara knew that the final test was approaching. It wouldn't be about teaching manners or teamwork, it would be about courage, moral fortitude, and the ability to act under pressure. She prepared the triplets, disguising lessons as challenges, unaware that external forces were already moving to test not just the family, but her influence over them. One stormy night, Amara heard footsteps approaching her quarters. She turned sharply, only to see a shadowy figure slip through the doorway. A cold voice whispered, "The Montclair legacy is not for the faint of heart. Are you prepared to face what you've stepped into?" Amara's heart raced, but she stood her ground. Somewhere deep inside, she knew that the true battle was about to begin, and this time, it wasn't the triplets who would challenge her. The storm outside mirrored the tension within the Montclair mansion. Lightning illuminated the grand halls, casting long shadows across the polished marble floors. Amara, standing tall in the dimly lit foyer, felt a surge of clarity. She had faced the triplets' chaos, the weight of the family's secrets, and the looming threat of exposure. Now, it was time to confront the final challenge, the shadowy figure who had entered the mansion that stormy night. The figure stepped forward, revealing a familiar yet unsettling face, a distant relative of the Montclairs who had long harbored resentment and greed. This person had been orchestrating threats and gathering sensitive information to manipulate the family and seize control of the company. Amara's eyes narrowed. "I know who you are, and I know why you're here," she said firmly. "But you underestimated one thing, the power of integrity and preparation." The confrontation escalated quickly. The relative attempted to intimidate Amara and the triplets, flaunting legal threats and insinuating public scandal. Yet Amara remained calm. She had spent weeks preparing the triplets, teaching them how to act responsibly, think critically, and work as a unit. Now, it was time for the children to step into the lessons they had learned. Sebastian, usually brash and reckless, was the first to act. He calmly approached, laying out evidence that exposed the relatives' attempts at manipulation. Isabella, dramatic yet clever, recounted moments where she had caught the intruders' lies firsthand. Julian, methodical and precise, presented organized documents that contradicted every claim, demonstrating the family's innocence and resilience. The relatives' confidence faltered. Every threat, every accusation, was met with unwavering truth and unity. Amara watched with pride as the triplets transformed before her eyes, from entitled children to courageous defenders of their family. Richard Montclair entered the room, witnessing the scene. His usual arrogance was replaced by a stunned respect. "Amara. I underestimated you," he admitted. "And the children. I see now the guidance you've provided. This house, this family, you've changed everything." Amara's voice was steady, filled with authority and warmth. Leadership isn't about wealth or fear. It's about responsibility, integrity, and teaching those under your care to act wisely and morally. The relative, defeated and exposed, had no choice but to retreat. Legal action and public exposure ensured that any attempt at manipulation would be neutralized. Justice had been served, not through revenge, but through strategic courage, intelligence, and moral strength. In the days following the confrontation, the mansion's atmosphere transformed. The triplets were no longer mischievous, entitled children, they had become young leaders in their own right, guided by lessons of empathy, teamwork, and accountability. Amara reflected on her journey. She had entered the Montclair world as an outsider, underestimated by both children and adults. She had faced manipulation, privilege, and threats. Yet, through resilience, intelligence, and moral conviction, she had emerged not just victorious, but transformative, changing lives and legacy in ways wealth alone could never achieve. The story of Amara and the Montclair triplets is more than a tale of triumph over chaos. It is a testament to the power of resilience, courage, and the ability to inspire transformation in others. True influence lies not in dominance or fear, but in teaching, guiding, and empowering those around you to rise above their flaws and embrace responsibility. If Amara's journey inspired you, ask yourself, how can you transform challenges into opportunities for growth? How can you turn adversity into a force for positive change? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below, and subscribe to Echoes of Black Struggles for more stories of courage, transformation, and justice. Remember, no matter the obstacles, no matter the opposition, victory is possible when integrity, strategy, and compassion lead the way.